Well, hello and welcome to the Belong Collective. We have an important update and announcement for you. This is going to be probably a 10 to 15-minute video. Really exciting information. It is our survey results along with a very big announcement, but you're going to have to wait through the survey results to get the big announcement. But at the same time, trust me, it's very worth it. You probably filled out a survey a little bit ago. If you didn't, that's fine. But here's the information from that survey, what we gathered from that survey, what we learned from that survey. I'm going to go through it. I'm actually going to share my screen here, pop over to our PowerPoint here of the survey. Excuse me. We had 39 people complete the survey, and this was done through Question Pro. Did a great job. Hey, how many of you have been a part of the Belong Collective? Very interesting information. Like when have you been a part of the Belong Collective? Since the bridge, since TBC launched, 2020, 2021. It's interesting to see how we've been picking up 10, 15, 10%, and how many of us are here since the bridge. So this was good information to have. So 64% of us have been here since the bridge. This was probably some of the, as our board met and talked about this, this was some of the most interesting information that we have. 28% coming from Hummelstown and Hershey, but also 28% coming from the West Shore. It's very interesting. So that's across the river. Obviously, we have some 8% in Harrisburg suburbs and 8% in Harrisburg downtown. And then we also have another 6% out like Elizabethtown, Lancaster, Palmyra, Annville, Lebanon. And then 8% is online only. That's interesting, right? Yes, we have some people who join us online only. And so that's, and by online only, most of those people are locationally not here to be in person with us. It's not that they just prefer online only. It's that they don't live in central Pennsylvania, but they tune in and they follow along. And then 15% from other. I don't really know what that means, but we had some people maybe didn't feel like any of these locations we gave as options fit where they're coming from, and so they hit other. But what's unique about this is, if you look at the history of our community, we've definitely had a heavier weight toward Hummelstown, Hershey area, meaning, in previous kind of surveys or just database information we've been easily 50% plus in the Hummelstown, Hershey area. We've seen that balance out now. We've seen that between West Shore and Hershey, Hummelstown balance out, which, reveals to us as we think about locationally where to be. It shows that we need to be thinking about the fact that we have a community from broad array of places. All right. What age bracket do you fall into? So if you were to include the 20s and the 30s together, this is a really pretty good demographic in that, 23% from 20 to 40 or 20 to 39, 28% from 40 to 49, 28% from 50 to 59, and 21% 60 plus. Really our age demographic. And obviously this wasn't something that was open to kids. We did allow, I think, we allowed for a 13 to 19-year-old category, but we didn't have any assumption that, high schoolers were going to be filling this out in our community. But all that to say, I feel like from an age perspective, we are pretty diverse. We touch a lot of age ranges, which I think is really healthy and good and helpful for our community. About how many digital gatherings did you watch in the last year? So 33% watched 15 plus, 23% 10 to 14, 18% 5 to 9, 26% 1 to 4, and 0% watched none. So that is really encouraging that everyone at least tuned into one digital gathering last year. So thankful for that information. And as you can see on like the top end, we have about 50% of our community at 10 or more. About how many in-person gatherings did you attend? So we have 18 that attended 9 to 10 plus, 18%, 8 at 7 to 8, 18% at 5 to 6, 23% at 3 to 4, 21% at 1 to 2, 13% at none. Now, as the board met and thought about this, like it's really hard to, when we think about the last year, at this point, we're really thinking about 2021, right? When we think about 2021, there was a lot of things going on. There's a lot of reasons with COVID and everything that someone might say, I'm keeping my circle really close. I know there's an in-person gathering, but I'm not attending. And choose not to attend. And it's not about the location we were at. It's not about the infrequency that we were meeting. It's not about, that I guess there's a lot of reasons someone might not make it to one in-person gathering. And then even when we think of those who made it to, more than 50% of our community were at 4 or under. So when we think about that, that could mean, for some of us, we might make conclusions of like, look, we didn't really attend very well. At the same time, we recognize that 2021 had its own challenges for attendance and its own challenges with us being at different locations, with us meeting in, going from a digital gathering one week to an in-person the next week, and trying to make sure to communicate all of that and make sure everybody was on the same page. But then on top of that, going with the realities of COVID, especially in the fall and the winter, and in the spring last year. So like, there's just a lot in this data that isn't necessarily fully formed of like whether or not in-person gatherings are our community is interested in, is what I would say. I think our community is very interested in in-person gatherings, which we're going to find out in a minute. How satisfied are you with the Belong Collective? 56% very satisfied, 26% satisfied. So we're looking at, 82% here would consider themselves satisfied or very satisfied, 15% neutral, and then 3% unsatisfied. I think those who maybe mark neutral or unsatisfied, just based on some of the comments we received, it's more about just the inconsistency of in-person gatherings. That was something we heard in the comments. In your opinion, which is better for TBC, renting property or purchasing property? 2/3 of our community said renting property, and obviously purchasing property if it was the right situation, the right timing, the right business thing to get into, then yeah, maybe we would consider that. But renting property is far more likely to be where we're at in the foreseeable future. But at the same time, this was just some data that we wanted to get. And 2/3 of you were right where I think our board is, which is that renting right now is for us, unless something were to open up purchasing wise. In your opinion, which is better, renting a permanent location or leasing, like so being in the same place every Sunday, or renting a variety of locations throughout Central PA? Again, overwhelming numbers, even more so than the last slide. We're at 3/4 of our community almost saying, hey, we want to be at a permanent location. We want to be the same place every week, same time every week. There's definitely an ease to that, a consistency to that, a normalcy to that, than popping up at various different locations. And I totally understand that. In your opinion, which is better for TBC, weekly in-person gatherings or digital gatherings with the occasional in-person? So thinking, what if we did digital gatherings and then occasionally had in-person, kind of like we've been doing, but maybe a little more strategically executed? Well, the collective has spoken. Weekly in-person gatherings by 3/4 there, almost. Obviously, there's a desire for weekly in-person gatherings. When we look at this, this is a really good question for me as a teacher. Are we wanting like sermons structured on theological topics or the Bible, commonly known as like exegetical teaching, or are we wanting more sermons structured around like social issues, common life issues, and that's typically known as topical? So exegetical or topical, like 82% were like topical. This is probably one of the most overwhelming statistics we got out of it, and that's kind of how we tend to teach anyways. So it shows we're on the right path. In your opinion, which is better for TBC? Pursue in-person gatherings on weekday evenings instead of Sundays, pursue in-person gatherings on Saturday evenings instead of Sundays, or continue in-person gatherings on Sunday. 85% said continue in-person gatherings on Sunday. So we were just throwing out some questions here because one of the things that we do have is we have relationships with other churches, and some of those churches have offered to let us use their space, even potentially rent-free. The struggle is they say you can use our space, but you just can't. We're using it on Sunday morning, is what they say, right? So obviously the idea of like a Sunday evening or even a Saturday evening was something we needed to explore, and we needed to ask this question because we just needed to see where our community was. Obviously, if like 85% of you are like, hey, we can meet on Saturday night or, a weekday evening, we would have probably explored some options that might have existed within some of those, opportunities with those churches that we are aware of and would consider kind of like allies and inclusion. In your opinion, which is better for TBC? Sunday morning gatherings or Sunday evening gatherings? Again, this is actually probably the most overwhelming data point, 92% here. Sunday morning gatherings, people overwhelmingly want that in-person gathering to remain on Sunday. This is probably the biggest touch point within our community of differentiating between two sides of the coin. And I think our community sees value on both. So in your opinion, which is better for TBC? TBC pursues a deeper digital gathering presence and provides a network of homes for watch parties at all different times throughout the week, with the occasional collective in-person gathering. So that kind of idea is more around centering on groups and turning toward like that direction. Obviously, as we come out of COVID, there's going to be some things we're going to innovate as a community. We're not going backwards, we're going forwards. There's going to be some things that change. And this is one of those like models that we were looking at, considering, at least exploring within this question. Or TBC pursues in-person gatherings exclusively and ends digital gatherings, only providing them when absolutely necessary. Now, I just want to be clear here. When I say ends digital gatherings, for those of you who might be tuning into this and listening, and you're like, I only stream, I'm out of state, or I really want to follow you guys, now digital gatherings are over. This does not mean we won't live stream. And we will have a lot better live streaming capabilities in the future than we currently have, because where we're currently at, Hershey Lodge, we get some spotty Wi-Fi, and so or spotty LTE, because we don't have Wi-Fi there. So with that being the case, this answer is not saying we won't live stream our in-person gathering. It's just saying we won't make exclusive digital gathering content. So we would end the digital gatherings in that capacity. Were we to maybe need to take a Sunday off, or multiple for COVID, for example, let's say there was another surge or something like that, we would still have the digital gatherings in our back pocket to produce and do if needed. Okay. But this is where our community was most divided, in the sense of, I think some people saw value in the potential of like being in each other's homes, kind of decentralizing our gatherings, but then having the occasional in-person gathering, maybe monthly, maybe quarterly, maybe bi-monthly. I don't know. We didn't really go that detailed into the question, but ultimately, in-person gatherings still a high value here. When we looked at the time, what's the time you would prefer? We looked at 10 a.m. was still very popular. Some people 9 a.m., some people 11 a.m. You get the 9 a.m.ers who are like, I want to get on with my day. And you get the 11 a.m.ers who are like, I want to sleep in. So we touched both those, but still 10 a.m. seems to be the winner. And just really quick, so I'm not going over every single question. Like there was a question of like, should the next thing we launch be the youth group or the kids ministry? And some of you even commented to me about that question. You were like, that is such a hard question to answer. I don't know. But we did throw some other questions out there. That's more just for some other things we've talked about or thought through. And we thought if we're doing the survey, we should try to get this data right now. So it's not necessarily pertinent to decisions that are being made at this very moment. So I'm not including that. Also, we asked a lot of questions about, hey, if we were to meet in the week, would we meet on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Like what time would we meet? And like those questions aren't really relevant because the overwhelming desire to stay on Sunday. So I'm not even going over those questions, right? TBC Helps is a program that provides aid and support to those in need. Moving forward, should TBC invest additional resources and a larger focus on TBC Helps? And 72% of you said yes, 5% of you said no, and 23% of you said, I don't know. So again, almost 3/4 of our community, probably those who have seen TBC Helps in action, are like, yeah, let's keep doing that. And let's even invest more and additional resources in that. And then we asked if we should even include some of those additional resources being volunteer opportunities through it. And wow, like 9 out of 10 there, right? You guys push for that. Act Justly is a program that supports advocacy locally for marginalized groups. Moving forward, should TBC invest additional resources and a larger focus on Act Justly? So Act Justly would be things like when we've helped with the Pride Fest and other things like that when we've come alongside groups that are planning and helped fund or helped buy the park certificate, the license and things like that for these gatherings that happen. So 59% said yes, 38% said I don't know. I think honestly, we haven't talked a ton about Act Justly. It kind of pops up more event-based here and there. And so I think had our community known more about what's actually being done with Act Justly, I think that would have even been more weighted toward the yes. But at the same time, still more than half of our community wants to keep doing the Act Justly stuff. This is probably the biggest ranking at the end here of like, hey, rank the following from 1 to 4, like what's most important. So as we think about in-person gatherings, digital gatherings, TBC Helps, and Act Justly, like what do you see as most important? Overwhelmingly, in-person gatherings were most important. And I think the consistency of in-person gatherings based on all of the data and having that. And then TBC Helps, then digital gatherings, then Act Justly. So here's what this says. When we met as a board, kind of what we pulled away. Our community is spread out around Central PA, more spread out regionally than we had initially thought, I think, or at least, I mean, I knew we knew that there were people all spread out, but I don't think we knew data wise, like the extent of that. And with that, being more open to trying to find that centralized location in more of like a Harrisburg area. And then on top of that, realizing our community really wants in-person gatherings. Yet some of the data shows that our community hasn't really attended well the in-person gatherings we've provided. So again, and there's a lot of factors for that, as I said earlier, COVID, other things like that. But the question also then became like, well, if we could provide a solid regular space for a 4-month period of time, for example, could we use that as like an experiment/test for our community to see how well it's attended, to see if it's sustainable for our community from a financial standpoint of renting weekly, but also from a just attendance standpoint and volunteer standpoint. So we left the meeting on Saturday. This would have been, I should probably actually say the date. It would have been like the Saturday, maybe the 9th. I don't know. But whatever Saturday is around March 9th, because I don't have a calendar with me right this second. Maybe March 10th. I don't know, March 11th, whatever. Anyway, around that Saturday, we met. And then after we left, the goal was, and we knew it was an aggressive timeline, could we get into a space for the first Sunday of May and be in that same space every Sunday till the end of August and potentially beyond that, but to the end of August, get a 4-month kind of contract. Every single Sunday, we're going to be there. Every single Sunday at 10 a.m. and it be a place that we feel, confident that we can meet in, set up, tear down, and it would work for who we are. Now, just so you know, we have been spending, I particularly have spent a lot of time scouting locations and working really hard to try to find locations. The struggle has been that with COVID and with the lack of employees at a lot of these spaces that we would traditionally meet at, for example, bars, music venues, they haven't been able to emphasize admin. And so it can be email after email after email, and I get nothing back. It can be a phone call, a voicemail, a phone call, a voicemail, a phone call, a voicemail, and I get nothing back. And pretty much what that tells me is they are short-staffed. They have on their website still that they're renting, but they're actually not renting. And, even like a place like Appalachian Brewing Company, which is where we were going to meet the first Sunday that COVID all started. We were actually on our transition from HMAC into Appalachian Brewing Company. We were going to be meeting there in, I think it's called the Abbey Bar area upstairs. Like, it was a great venue. Our plan was to meet there regularly. And we had to close that down because that was the first Sunday of COVID, thinking, in a couple of weeks we'll be back there. But obviously that didn't happen. And then even as COVID kind of started to become more like we had the measures in place to meet in person, as we would talk to them, they're short-staffed. They're struggling to find even servers. They ended up closing for a period of time. They're reopened now, but they're still not renting. So I say this just to say, it's been very challenging to find a place to rent. So even when we left that meeting, encouraged that we had a plan, we were uncertain whether or not we would find a place to rent to us for 4 months, or even to rent to us at all on a consistent basis, even if it was just semi-consistent. So the first thing that came to mind for me was Midtown Cinema, because we had a Home Alone meetup there for a Sunday Fun Day in December, and it was a really good venue, and the staff was really receptive to us and had said they would want to work with us again. In my mind, I heard that as like, hey, if you want to come watch a movie again, yeah, we would love that. But I wasn't certain that, hey, if you want to come here and actually, have church here, if that would be something. But I reached out to them, had a good phone call on Monday, followed up by a in-person walkthrough of the facilities on Friday, and a verbal agreement to a 4-month contract. So I say that to say Midtown Cinema, if you've ever been there, that's where we're going to be May, June, July, August, every Sunday at 10 a.m. We're going to be in Theater 3. What is amazing about this space is it gets us back into Midtown. If you know, the Bridge used to have a Midtown campus, and the Midtown Cinema is well-known space. Really, really excited to have this opportunity to be there. This is the room we're in. It has a sound system built in. We're not confident if that sound system is going to support our musicians and kind of our musical experience yet. But at the same time, it could, and that could mean we don't have to bring in, set up, and tear down a sound system every Sunday. It also has a projector that shows movies, obviously. We are able to tap into the projector that shows movies for our Sunday morning experience. And so how amazing is that, that we get to use that and utilize that. So if we want to play video clips, we can do that. If we want to play, if I want to show slides, things like that, we're going to have a lot more options here as we do think about lyrics and things like that. Also, one of the other really cool things is they have a coffee bar in the front. And so, we're going to pay rent, but we're also going to pay a little bit more, that we're going to have coffee every Sunday. And it's not going to be volunteers that have to make it or handle it. It's going to be handled by Midtown Cinema staff and put out, and we're going to have coffee every single Sunday. Their facility is handicap accessible. Everything that we would look for in a facility, they check all the boxes. They have a parking lot. So when we've gone to Midtown in the past, or into Harrisburg in general, and we've tried to meet, often one of the biggest feedback things we get is, hey, we love meeting here, but parking is just so tough, trying to find the right spot to park, making sure I'm not going to park in a spot that's going to get me towed or having to pay for parking, things like that. Well, hey, here's the deal. There's a parking, a parking space for everyone in our community for the most part. And worst case scenario, there isn't, and there's tons of street parking right there. So that's really exciting for me, because I think that accessibility and being able to get in and out is going to be super helpful. So this is something to celebrate. I hope you feel like celebrating this, and it's also something that we really want to encourage you to attend. If you marked that in-person gatherings every Sunday really matter to you, these next 4 months, starting in May, are going to kind of be where we get to put, in some ways, our money where our mouth is, I guess, in the sense of like, hey, we need to know that we're expending our resources properly, right? Meeting every month, paying a rental fee every month, or every week, for meeting every single Sunday in a month, is something that we take seriously. We want to make sure that that we're stewarding the money and the funds and the resources that are provided to the Belong Collective well. We do a lot of things where we give to other organizations, and to meet in person can sometimes mean we have to say, no to that. And not necessarily no to that, just might mean that, hey, we have to do that a little different, or we have to, change that up. So we want to meet in person, and we want it to be something that is hopefully received well. And because it's at this space, in my opinion, you got no excuse, right? Like this, I know some of you might have to drive 20, maybe 25 minutes to get to Midtown Cinema. But at the same time, what a location. Just from everything, lighting to climate control to seats. You don't have to sit in hard seats. You get these nice comfy seats. We don't have to tear down afterwards the seats, the chairs. We don't have hardly anything to tear down after. We don't have to tear down a projector and a screen afterwards. We don't have to, like, it's going to be really great on our volunteers. And also, I think a great location for our community. So that's enough. Thanks for listening along. I'm confident you might have questions. We talked over this on Sunday and maybe you weren't there. I allowed people to raise their hand, ask questions, make comments. Email me, Justin at thebelongcollective.org. Email me there and let me know what your questions are, what your comments are, how you're feeling about this. I would love to know, or comment on this video if it's on Facebook. Comment on the video with a question or with a comment, how you're feeling about it. We will be announcing kind of, the first Sunday, I think is March 1st, or sorry, May 1st, actually, there. So we'll be announcing that. Probably the other big date to note is that we are going to be at Hershey Lodge on Easter Sunday. And we're incredibly thankful that Hershey Lodge is allowing us to be there on Easter, because we have yet to have an Easter gathering as a community. So how cool is this? We're going to be gathering on Easter at Hershey Lodge. That's April 17th at 10 a.m. Invite your family, invite your friends. We would love to have, a good showing of our Belong Collective family together on Easter, as this will be the first ever Easter gathering of the Belong Collective that hasn't been digital, that's been in person. So what a cool opportunity. You could be there. You could be part of that. I think that's cool. So hopefully you're able to make it out. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for hanging in there and listening to this survey content and this big announcement that we're moving to Midtown Cinema. It's exciting. Again, Justin at thebelongcollective.org if you have questions or comments. Peace.